So if anything, it's just a little bit more of myself, and it's a little bit more straight ahead than the epic long songs that we're known for and all the space rock stuff that we're known for.
What's up, everybody? It's Keefy at ghostcultmag.com, and I am joined by the amazing Phil Caivano of Monster Magnet. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, great. Nice day here in Jersey, and nice early August day, and it's the weather's great. I'm having a good morning, good afternoon now for me, So
Right. Every afternoon is a guitar player's morning. Super cool to talk to you on the occasion of your debut solo album. And I think the first thing I had prepared to ask you was why now for a solo album? Why is now the right time for this?
one of those things of just that because I had the time, it just kind of came to me, in 2020, and it was kind of in the works a little bit before that with the idea of doing it, and then then in 2019 I was really busy with Magnet, and we were like on a European tour, came home to everything being shut down after a US tour was prepared, and one thing led to another. We know what happened like that first year, and then Dave not being physically ready to go on tour again, and it was just like the snowball kept going, so it really wasn't planned like that. And it wasn't something like I always tell everybody else. I've always been one of the ones who's very happy being in Magnet, and that keeping my creative thing going, and working with Wyndorf is amazing. And it was just the timing, and that's really what happened.
I'm fairly certain from what I know about Dave, having chatted with him a few times also over the years, he much prefer to be working than not. So I'm sure when everything is being equal, that's a guy that wants to write, record, tour, everything he can all the time.
Right. And at the time, my conversations with him around that time, he was like, go for it, do your thing. You know what I mean? Like, we've known each other so long that it was like getting the encouragement from him to do a record right now, over that time period, and get a record out there was it felt good that, my good buddy, my best friend is like, pushing me to do it while he couldn't really do certain things, you know what I mean? And like, of course, we're always in communication, and that's just a really good feeling, because I know, and sometimes with a lot of bands, it's not like that. You know what I mean? Guys will be like, "Oh, someone's doing a record. Oh, why are they doing a record?" Who knows? I don't know what goes on. I only know what goes on in my circle. So
Forget about
it's
other bands. We don't worry about what they do. We do what we do. And
yeah. That's kind of how we've always been.
right on. That's a great. I'm really glad to hear that. The whole world will kick you when you're down. It's great to get that encouragement and that, that attaboy from your boss, basically your
Yeah, and
partner and your boss.
especially with what he was going through at the time. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
So
true.
that's how it is between him and I.
Right
So
on.
we're always pushing each other, and there for each other through the thick and thin of it all.
Nice.
Like, yeah, we're friends at the end of the day. So that's so I had the time and went back to Bob, and Bob was available, and Bobby and I have a long working relationship as well. So it was a very the timing of it just felt right.
Awesome. I'm a big fan of saying it's the music business, not the music friendship. But if you can have the music friendship too, that's great. And I was wondering, I dig this record. It's, as expected, I knew it was going to be a riff fest and really great songs. Is there anything on this record you got to get out of yourself that you don't do in Monster Magnet?
Well, it's all kind of in there. Like Dave always gives me a lot of freedom, as far as my guitar style goes, and how I play. He really lets me be me. And so it's more just an extension of myself. So if anything, I said a little more straight ahead, a little bit more just more straight ahead rock and roll. Like, you know what I mean? It's not so spacey, and it's not so, which I love all that stuff. That's what I mean, that like, in Magnet, I get to be myself, and like this was just one of those things where, one of the things, I played all the bass and all the guitar and all the vocals. So the only thing I didn't do was play drums, because I'm horrible. I can't even do that. So if anything, it's just a little bit more of myself, and it's a little bit more straight ahead than the epic long songs that we're known for and all the space rock stuff that we're known for. for. So that was, and it really wasn't intentional, but like, and one of the other, talking to somebody else, I was like, at one point I was trying to do something a little different, and I came back and listened to it, and I was like, you've been the guitar player Monster Magnet for 25 years. What are you doing? You know what I mean? It sounded awful. I was trying to do different setups and things, maybe another side. I'm like, this is just me. This is how I am. So
Do what you know. That's what the rule book
yeah,
says. And to quote my British friends, and they say it does what it says on the tin. I know they're all sick of hearing me use that cliche, and I'm
yeah.
probably going to have some kind of cosmic comeuppance because of it for overuse. But I apologize to all my Brits out there. I love hearing your voice, man. This is really it's really a treat to hear you sing and like fully fledged, all the way, balls to the wall. I love the vocal performance on all these tracks.
Oh,
How much
thank you.
fun did you have doing the full lead vocals this time?
Well, that was the toughest part of the whole thing because I haven't done lead vocals on a record in a very, very long time. And I've always been very I've worked with other great vocalists, and that was really like at one point I was like, now I got the basic tracks out of the way, and I know I can sit here in my studio and do leads and guitars and keep doing that. And I purposely kept the tracking side of it very, very simple. And I was like, oh, I got to put that vocal mic up. And it was uncomfortable at first, but then again, getting to, I had Wyndorf pushing me to do it. He's just like, get those vocals on there and just keep picking away at it and get comfortable singing. And so that's what I took a little bit of time to do that. And once I did that, and I was more comfortable doing it. And I pushed myself to just get it done and don't think about it too much and just, just get it out of me, and it was it was a chore at first. It turned into like something I had a lot of fun doing.
Amazing. And obviously you have the one of the best ever to do it right next to you sometimes. But what other vocalists or who out there do you really admire and you were trying to sort of, get into the groove of?
Well, my favorite of all time would have to be Lemmy. It's no secret for me. Like Motorhead is like Motorhead, early Iggy, early Stooges, like that kind of stuff. Where I like vocalists where it just like kind of like sits in the track, and it just kind of sits there, and it's like not too loud, not too much. And I'm not a real singer, so I would call myself a vocalist, and like Dave is a vocalist who's a singer and all this kind of stuff. And I was fortunate at a certain period of my life to be in the studio with other producers. I was an assistant for some of the hardcore guys who I saw the way they push themselves and do stuff. And it was really different because seeing them live and seeing them in the studio, guys like Roger from Agnostic Front and Jamie Josta from Hatebreed, and and some of these dudes that were you see them live and it's one thing, but actually see them be themselves in the studio, in that studio environment. I did a lot of work with Zeus up at Planet Z, and that was really, really a great learning experience. So I was able to tap into a lot of that stuff that I had been around.
I'm a big Zeus Harris fan. That guy is amazing. And I used to live in New England, so I know a lot of people who work with him and always praise him. Very cool guy, very
He's
humble.
a great guy. I learned a lot from Zeus. He's one of those guys, like when I'm in the studio with him, it's just like, wow, we're having fun doing something. It's great.
That's a common thing I have heard. Doesn't feel like work when you work with that guy. So that's a great thing.
That's
So
that's how making records for me should be. So that's what I kept this as natural and as laid back as I could, and keeping the wheel turning without like again like overthinking it and trying to like I purposely kept things like on the ground and used my personal influences from like the early days of being a teenager, seeing bands like the Ramones and the Cramps and that whole Johnny Thunders and like all that kind of stuff. I always will tap into my initial influences, and that's one thing with this record. I was able to do that more, as well as like the Hawkwinds and the Dave Brocks and stuff like that.
I always think that it's funny that you mentioned the Ramones also, because I always feel like there's a handful of groups that punks and rockers all agree on, and even metalheads, and Motorhead and Ramones are two. And I would always throw Misfits in there as well as a few others. But
Oh
you know,
yeah, yeah.
well, some Jersey in there for you. But
Oh yeah,
Just yeah,
definitely.
of course, Lodi. No stranger to Lodi. But out of curiosity, did you get to bring out any special gear for this, or the same usual your typical setup?
Well, gear wise, I have access to a lot of stuff here in my studio. So, and also talking to my good friend Joe Barisi, talking to Joe about like, keeping the rig simple, like certain fuzz pedals that I really love, the color sound stuff, the color sound fuzz. And I went back to like, some Russian big muff stuff, which I was like, I just got on that kick, I'll get into kicks in the studio. For this record, I was like the same guitar amp for all the tracks, maybe a swap from an SG to a Les Paul for a couple things like that. I kept it to the same two Marshalls, and for bass, I used a Marshall and a Rickenbacker that I've used on a million records, like almost every record I've worked on in the last 20 years. I've used that Ricky and that Marshall for the majority of it, and it sounded okay for Lemmy and a lot of the other some of the other guys. I love the sound of that setup, and I pushed myself to keep it there and to keep that on the ground and not to switch gear so much, and just like, so that was the other thing with having my own personal studio of like, I can just turn everything on when I'm ready to go. And I didn't really want to waste too much time because my brain will get all over the place. I wanted to keep those setups very, very simple. So it was about creating the music and not creating the sounds.
Plus, you don't want to reinvent the wheel every track. I know that's very appetizing to some artists. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Let's redo, make everything. We've interviewed quite a share of people who've had the opposite feeling, but I kind
Yeah.
of feel like I like the simplicity of it.
Yeah, and I had Bobby working with Bobby, like, and being like, hey, what do you think of this bass and guitar track? And like, cause he had already tracked the drums, and I was able to just like, as like the work in progress, sit down with Bob and listen to things before we mixed it and be like, he's like, yeah, leave it alone. It's great. We got it. Leave it alone. It's great. We got it, and like, hey, maybe you want to just like push yourself a little bit there, so, or just pull back a little there, and to keep, and I wanted to, I'll say this real quick, is that a lot of my favorite records were done at a time where people didn't have a lot of instruments and access to that. And there's a consistency to those records. There's a consistency from the first song to the last song sonically. And I always really, really like that, where it's like, hey, Johnny Ramone had the same, the Mosrite guitar and a certain amplifier from start to finish. Lemmy and Fast, that you can tell it was the same guitar rig or the same guitar setup throughout. And I wanted to do that instead of changing it, like, oh, this song, maybe I should go this or that. But like, I wanted that consistency that I fell in love with. Like, I'm sure Ron Ashton on the first, I remember talking to Ron about the recording of the first two Stooges records, and he told me exactly what he used. I'm positive he used that for every take.
You get what's the expression? You can't another expression. You can't gild a lily. I'm full
Yeah,
of cliches today. I got to mind my p's and q's. But
I love
yeah,
it.
shouting out a lot of great names right there, including another great Phil I have interviewed, Phil Campbell. So in addition to yourself, so let's do a little breakdown on the album. It's got your name on it. It's you intrinsically in and out. So I'll
That's
just
it.
shout out the song titles, and you share whatever you feel like sharing about each song, any recollections or feelings. We
Okay.
might we might glean some stuff from you, man. Come and Get Me is the lead track on the album.
Okay, that song started as like that first little riff, and I wanted to do like, a get in your car straight ahead banger. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to open the record with the song that made, a track that like, okay, let's open the windows, let's get on the highway and just like put the pedal to the metal and just go. And that was a kind of thing of like, and lyrically, of just like, I don't consider myself such a great lyricist. It's more like cliches and like one-liners, but like at the time of early 2020, when I wrote those lyrics, of just like, don't stop, you know what I mean? Just because all these things are going on around us, and even without a pandemic, just like keep it going, man. Feel good about it. Things are gonna be there, but we're the ones in charge of it. So let's just keep going, keep moving forward. And I wanted to like, press that gas pedal a little bit.
I like it. The second track is Hero.
Heroes is a song that I initially wrote for a project I was doing with Todd Youth. we did a project years ago called Capricorn. A little thing we had fun doing, and then we always talked about doing a few other songs. I had written that song, and Todd was actually out here doing a Motorhead tribute thing with Bob and I at Coney Island High after Lemmy had passed away, and Todd was staying with me. I said, "Hey, I think I have a track that we should record next time," and I played that for him, and he loved it. And unfortunately, Todd passed, and so I dug this song up and was like, wow, this I really dig this song, so I wanted to record it. And and I know he, personally knowing that Todd really dug that track makes me really happy that I finished it and put it on the record, and lyrically with that one, it's like, a lot of us have these heroes that we look up to, and they're sometimes it doesn't work out. And again, it's a lot of self stuff in there of like, a lot of our, you look at that, you put people up on pedestals and they always fucking fall down 99% of the time. And sometimes like, it's almost like searching for the next one is the point. You know what I mean? Like, it's great to have all that stuff there. And, that's it. Like, I didn't really think too much about the lyrics of that one. That just kind of spilled out of me. And again, I kind of wrote it at that time. So I really just dug that track up, for Todd.
Amazing. Todd, one of our favorite interviews ever and one of the best people I ever. Great guy. Great. What a loss. Now is Forever is the third track.
That song I actually wrote a really long time ago. And I was actually like, I get into these phases of simplicity or going backwards, and I wrote that with like a click track and the initial riff, and it just kept going, and it sounded really repetitive, and I liked it. And then that's another one where it's like lyrically, it's just like all we have is right now, and like try to like, and during the pandemic, I mean, I wrote those lyrics quite a few years earlier. And during the pandemic, it kept coming up to me with all the stuff that was going around, all the stuff that all the death and things and the news just blasting it. I was just like, you know what, man, I ain't letting that stuff get to me, man. I'm like, right now is all I got. I don't know what's going on. And I didn't record that song until after I was sick with COVID a few times and was like, like knocking on the door. And, and at my age, honestly, I'm not a kid, and all we got is right here, right now. Now could, stay in that moment because it could be our last, and savor it. So that's kind of where I was at with that one.
You Will Wait is the next track.
Oof, that was one that I pushed myself a little bit with. That's the one track on the record where it got really soupy with the effects on the vocals, and that's how I recorded the demo of that again quite a while ago, and I had all these effects on the vocals, and Bob was just like, "Leave it, I like it." I like it. I didn't really redo much of the vocals at all. I just left the vocals from the demo, and I pushed myself to finish the actual track. And Bobby was able to, like, his drum parts on that really pushed it to a spot that I really, really liked. And I pulled back. Initially, the guitars and the bass and stuff were going to be spacier, but Bob's drum track pulled me back to just keep it driving and let the vocals be like really spacey and trippy and stuff like that.
Talk to the Dead is the next track.
That track, that was really based in the lyrics, and kind of like that philosophy, I've had a lot of loved ones who've passed away. Right. And a lot of loved ones who are just, they're physically gone on this planet, but to me, their spirit is completely alive. And I can sit back and sit in this chair at any given time and tap into their voice and some of the things I've learned from them. And that's kind of what that was all about. And then I had that idea for the lyrics, and I just started to just play the bass like a really simple part, and it all came out. And there's if you listen deep into that song, there's a little tiny guitar lick that when I was recording it, man, that sounds so much like that guy, and who's one of my all-time favorites. And I was like, well, I'm just going to play the part, how what he played on one of his records, and it goes by for like 5 seconds, and I snuck it in there.
All right, now I want to go back and listen and figure it out. Lay in the Sand is the next track.
That's another one that was I was kind of like, so I had that riff laying around for a while, and it was kind of like more of a Detroit kind of again Stooges MC5 kind of thing was what was in my head for that, and simple, and it was really odd. I get really into unison tunings and stuff like that, and I had done this one guitar part like with a Velvet Underground unison tuning, and I could never do it again. That's another thing that Bob encouraged me to like leave alone, keep it from the original demo. We can work with that. And I was like, I tried to replay it and I couldn't. And so it had that kind of driving opening guitar riff. And I do like songs that kind of stay start to finish kind of the same. And, I live close to the shore here. And, that whole like laying in the sand, looking up at the moon and looking up at the stars and seeing all that water. It was like, I don't try to get too tricky with the words, and, kind of just came to me. And that's what that was kind of.
All righty. Verge of Yesterday is the next track.
Another one there was a toss up between that one and another song, and I just kind of liked that one. It was, Motorhead influenced. Like I still listen to the first four Motorhead records religiously. That's kind of like my blueprint. And it's kind of like another one of more like, for me personally to lyrically would be like not sit so much in the past, like as far back in the past I want to go as maybe 2 days ago. You know what I mean? Yeah, we got to learn from our past and stuff like that, but let's keep it moving. It was another like a driving song for me, like a get in the car kind of song.
Oh, get in the car kind of songs. I like that. Sick of You is next.
That was like, there's no secret there that I am like the Stooges first record is probably my favorite record of all time. I'm influenced by so many different things and I love so many different styles of music, but every time I hear that drum beat, which is Bo Diddley, which is a Bo Diddley beat, and a simple rock and roll thing, I wanted to really, really do something really simple rhythmically. And I was listening to that record a lot. And then originally there was a whole nother set of lyrics on there, a whole nother vocal track. I listened to it and I was like, this does not sound like myself. I don't like it. And I was sick of it. And I was just like, I'm going Stooges on this one.
Fun and Games is the next to last track on the album.
Song happened really, really, really fast, and was like, okay, I want to do something that's kind of like if Johnny Ramone played in Hawkwind, you know what I mean? If Johnny Ramone played in Hawkwind or something like that, you know what I mean? Because for me, Johnny Ramone and Dave Brock are two of my favorite guitar players of all time, and I was like, well, how can I channel both of them in one track, and how can I do that, and that's kind of how I developed that riff. So that's how the actual music developed. And, lyrically, it was more like, it's one of those things where, a guy I know had passed away from a drug overdose, and he was always one of those dudes who was like, and it was like right before the pandemic. And, I had just met with one of his family members, and, I got like really bummed out for the family and all that kind of stuff. And like, addiction is something that is really tried and true to me. And it's like, we all party, we all do stuff, but once we cross that line, it's all fun and games until someone drops dead, and then it gets very, very real, very, very fast. And I didn't intend for it to be that way. And I try to make light of it a little bit in the song because I don't want to get too heavy with that kind of thing. But you asked the question, and that's what it's about. And that's what that song is.
There it is. That's what the point of this is, to get to the bottom of it. Thank you for sharing, and I'm sorry for your loss. Rough one. We lost so many along the way.
Yeah.
And then the final track is Face the Music, which you definitely have here.
Well, that was like, I wanted to end the record like I could either go like aggressive or just wind it down. And that was a little riff that I had that I was toying around with. And again, I'm not somebody who's going to hide anything about like where I get some ideas from. All these guys like, oh, whatever. One of my favorite songs I ever listened to in my life was The Watcher. And the way and ever since I was a fucking teenager and I listened to that record, when that record winds out so simply like that, with Lemmy's voice and that acoustic guitar and just the way that is. The riff I did was like a straight lift from that. I'm not going to lie about that, and it was like music to me. There's with the kind of stuff I do, everything comes from somewhere, and I believe with me, I can only speak for myself. I am my influences. And that song had such an influence on me. So I was tinkering around and I was like, yeah, it's kind of like, could it be too much like that? And I was like, no, I'm just gonna go for it. And that's what I did. And it's kind of like, with that other song leading into it, is like at the end of the day, no matter who we are, no matter what we love, and no matter what we do, we got to face the music, right? So and I wanted to again make light of it. So I wanted a song that kind of drifted us out. And almost like that's a side of me that I wanted to show, that I do love really, really trippy, bassy shit. So we had all this hard rock stuff, and I wanted to do at least one spacey, trippy song on the record. And I figured, well, it works leading out, and it reminded me a bit of the Watcher.
Well done. I really appreciate you sharing all that stuff with us. That was really great. And I think deepens the appreciation for the record. We're going to link everything in the description so people can go buy it and stream it, maybe, but preferably buy it. Just a couple more for you, man.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
wondering,
yeah, I'm good.
what else do you have on for the rest of the year? More magnet stuff, producing, more songwriting for yourself? What do you got
Well,
planned?
all right. So we have Monster Magnet is playing the Desert Fest in Brooklyn.
Nice.
And so we're really excited to be doing that because we just wound out. We've been home for like, a month now. It was our first time on tour in 3 years. Great to get back out there. We're really, really happy to be doing this show close to home. So the band's all like fine-tuned and ready to go. And I'm in the studio with a really cool project with a local friend of mine that I'm mixing in and produced. It's called Soma Kirtan, and like this is very, very trippy music, something that people would not really know me for, but it's with my friend Rob Ryan, who was a vocalist for a great local band called Lord Sterling years ago, and they're just guys I like being in the room with. So I'm finishing that record out, and a couple little things here and there, and then Dave and I talking about like what's our plan and what's on store for next year. Because we're Magnet's going to keep going now that we've got that under our belt, and the thing with this last tour that we did and everything that got canceled, everything that got on hold. I feel and Dave both feel that we both feel that it was to our advantage to just wait, to just wait it out, not push ourselves through. We're not kids anymore. That ain't a secret either. And that like I wanted Wyndorf to be healthy and happy to go out there. So, and this year it felt right, and we're in the discussions now about what we're going to do early 2024, and there's a lot of good things coming, and I'm going to keep, I got my studio right here, so I'm going to keep riffing and keep writing, and who knows what's going to come out of that. But with this particular record, I just was ready to get something out. The timing was right, and I went into it going, I might not ever do this again, a solo record, and that's why I called it. That's why I used my name, and I wanted to call it Caivano, and everybody was going to say Phil Caivano from Monster Magnet anyway. So I just wanted to eliminate that and just call it this because it's very personal to me, and it was just a lot of fun to do.
Right on. Advanced apologies for the whole music industry that has like a lizard brain and can't put anything else together. And also, like, there's a bunch of killer Monster Magnet anniversary years coming up in the next few years. So we'd love to get something happening with that too. And we want the best for and from Dave. So I really
Oh
appreciate you.
yeah, Dave is ready to go, man. It's like, we're a little like we live in a small town here. You know what I mean? We're like townies. You know what I mean? We ain't caught up in the hustle, the bustle of what everybody wants us to do. And at the end of the day, it is about our fans. And we know that. We know, like, it always may sound cliche to say that, but we know that Monster Magnet has some amazingly dedicated fans. Like, you know, we couldn't do what we have done without them. So we don't want to give them anything that's second to over 100%. We want to give them what they want. And we feel like anything so when we do things on our terms, we know they're going to like it. That's kind of where we are at with that kind of stuff. It makes no sense to go out there and do something that doesn't make sense or half-assed or something like that.
Well said, and a great place to stop. Phil Caivano, thank you so much for hanging out with Ghost Cult today, man. I
I
really,
did love the name
really
of
appreciate it.
Cult, dude. I love
Yeah,
it.
I did not name it, but I inherited it, and here we are. Started in the doomsday year of 2012. That's how that came about. But happy to be here. One more website that doesn't have metal something in its name. That's us. But
I
thanks,
love
man,
it. I
and
love it.
all the best to you and everybody, and we'll see you out there.
I see you out there, man. Have a great rest of your day.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.